The problem that we have is that previously Taliban were attacking Afghan people and they were claiming the responsibility for that. Right now, we see deadly attacks on Afghans, especially on Hazara minorities, and this was intensified during the month of Ramadan. But nobody's taking responsibility for that. At least what we see with the previous administration, that the government officials were coming on board. They were asking, they were trying to investigate the situation, and they were at least promising for the people that they are going to take their security. We saw all these deadly attacks happening in Afghanistan, and we don't see any reaction from the Taliban side.
That's interesting to me. Do you have? When you think back 20 years, if you remember, just after the Taliban fell, and there was a big lawyer jirga, as you call it, under King Zahir, who was still around then, and you had all these hopes for the future. Did anybody think it would get this bad so fast? In other words, you'd just be back to the Taliban, but they'd control even more land than they used to?
To be honest, you forget about 20 years back. I'm one of those Afghans that I was living in Pakistan as a refugee, and as soon as the interim administration was established, I left my family behind. I came back, and because I want to take part in reconstruction and development of my country. And even a year before collapse of the state, we knew that the situation was getting worse and the conflict was intensifying all around the country. But still, we're counting on our international allies and partners, especially the US, that they will help us with perhaps not an ideal and a good political settlement, but at least an acceptable political settlement that would not lead to collapse of state, but at least would help us to move forward. So even a year before the collapse of state, none of us predicted that situation would get that worse, and everything will fall so badly and so quickly, and things that were preventable and fixable, nobody took the responsibility to try to prevent the situation.
What about, though, the fairly obvious fact that the government, the old government, the Western-backed government, was extremely corrupt? I mean, the last president, as the Taliban were coming into the city, he took off and he loaded his helicopter with as much cash as he could get in that helicopter without overloading the thing, and then flew away with all the money. Why was the corruption tolerated, even under an American-backed regime?
We have to understand the situation. It was all about beginning the legitimacy of the government. First of all, what happened that we did have elections in Afghanistan, but it was never people's vote that decided result of the election. We know that we had disputed election all the time, and it was the youth always declaring the winner, not votes of the people. And that's why the administrations were feeling more accountable to the US and the West rather than to the people. And on top of that, they were coming from abroad, and they were not rooted in Afghanistan, so they didn't feel any accountability, and all of them were coming mostly trying to fill their pockets and make money and leave Afghanistan back in its dark and rainy days. So the corruption was there, impunity was there, the over-centralization of power and presidency, all issues were there, but all these issues were not propagated by Afghan people. It was in the design of the political structure that we put together right from born in Afghanistan. And end of the day, Afghan people, that they have no role in any of these issues, they got punished for everything.
Do you think there's a problem in that the Americans in particular never understood Afghanistan? Sometimes it helps to know what you don't know. The British in the 19th century concluded that they knew just enough to know what they would be getting into if they annexed Afghanistan to British India. And so they decided, no, we're better off staying out of this. Do you think the Americans understood enough about Afghanistan even after 20 years there?
I think, first of all, there was a huge difference of culture between Afghanistan and the Americans. So, of course, they did not know at all Afghan people and how we were operating and what kind of society we are. And on top of that, there was not willingness on the American side to actually understand the Afghanistan's reality and try to engage with the right people. So they were mainly relying on a number of either political leaders or warlords or those Afghans that they had come from abroad. And most of these people were not famous and they were not popular among Afghans because those that they had roots like warlords and others, they were highly corrupt. And those that they did not have any root, they also did not know how Afghanistan was operating. So that's why they came with the wrong structure, which was not responding to the need of Afghanistan. They came with the wrong legislations and they empowered the wrong people. And at the end, when they saw that, okay, we are not winning the battle, they just packed their bags and they left Afghanistan and they left all the problem for Afghan people to deal with it. The worry that we have is that we saw in the last 7 months what's happening in Afghanistan. But what will happen in Afghanistan is not going to remain in Afghanistan. It is going to get expanded and it is going to have its impact not only on the regional countries, but soon you'll see that it's going to have its impact on the international countries as well. And we saw already that it is impacting especially the US and NATO allies' credibility in terms of their partnership with the states.
Yeah. Yep, that's true. There will be consequences to this. There always are. But it's terrible, Nagris, for your fellow Afghans. So good luck to you and your country, because 2 decades of Western occupation didn't leave a trace. And whatever happens, you deserve better than the present regime.